All right. Well, welcome to another episode of the Esports Classroom podcast. Where we're just talking with people involved in esports to get different perspectives and kind of what's going on out there. So tonight we have with us Connor. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Connor.
Hey everyone, my name's Connor Alne. I go by Coach Alne online, and I'm the Executive Director of NAECAD, which is the National Association of Esports Coaches and Directors.
And we had Cole Prescott on a little while back. Cole is somebody I've known from Iowa just because he recruited my students from Ames High. So how did you get involved with esports?
Yeah, esports kind of came to me naturally. It was something, in high school, I really liked, I was into sports and things, but I really liked playing video games as well. And I think it was kind of into my senior year, I learned a little bit about Major League Gaming and the Halo and Call of Duty scene that was going on in the Midwest. And then it was really when I got to college, my dorm room at the University of Iowa, go Hawks, that we pulled up this MLG championship, and I was watching it, and I see all these people watching and playing and trying to win, like I forget the prize of that tournament, $100,000 or something like that. And it kind of clicked in my head that like this was actually becoming a thing, and that this was a possibility. So obviously I wanted to be a professional, but I never really got good enough. So I thought those
Mm-hmm.
that can't do teach. And then I decided to kind of get into more team management, event management, that side of things. I had a mentor at the time at the business school who was connected with Red Bull. And then I learned that Red Bull was looking to host an event on campus. So I kind of volunteered to try to help out with that and get that hosted. Got the itch for hosting tournaments, so I made the terrible decision to max out a credit card, buy a bunch of gaming equipment, and start traveling hosting events. So went to Iowa State for an event, just kind of different events across the Midwest, across various titles, just doing whatever I could because like it wasn't even really called esports then. It was just competitive gaming, and we're just doing whatever we could to have fun, get people together, and play in tournaments. So that was kind of my introduction into esports.
So yeah, I mean, definitely thinking about esports has come a long way from those events to where we see it now with high school events, state championships, and all that. Um, so you obviously weren't the player, but you're trying to organize all this stuff. What were some of those big lessons you learned from organizing those events and then traveling around with that?
Yeah, I think a piece of advice I'll give anyone if you're looking to do anything in esports, like the first thing you have to do is go to an event and try to volunteer manage or run it because you learn so much from the both managing the players, the whatever crowd you can assemble, marketing it, sponsorship. Like you learn so much in just hosting one event that I think I didn't know it at the time, but translated to basically a lot of the foundation of what I'd build my career off of. And the really just being able to be on that side of it and see how to run a bracket, how to run a tournament, how to manage players, I think is so important for anyone who's trying to do anything in esports, just to get that itch. On the other side of it, you didn't ask, but I'll say it. You should
Yep.
always also try to play in a tournament. I didn't go pro, didn't mean I didn't try. I was playing, and even to this day, if I see a tournament that I can easily whip up a team or go to, you got to play in one. It's I say this to coaches all the time that if you go to any traditional sport, you will never find like a coach who didn't play or at least didn't do some
Yep.
sort of athletic activity similar. So do whatever you can to try to run an event and try to play in an event.
Yeah, it's definitely. I like when we take students to the state championship, which is in person, so it's a big event for them to get that experience. But it is a very different experience for them. So it's kind of a they learn a lot, but it's you have to be there to experience it. And so it's even for the coaches, the first time being there, they don't know what to expect, how it's set up, how that matters to how they're playing, and that.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, esports is LAN. Like
Yep.
I grew up in that era that it wasn't real unless it was LAN.
Hmm.
And I think COVID did a lot of good things for esports, but it did a lot of bad. And one of the things was we got way too complacent with online tournaments, and it's
Yep.
just not the same playing esports without having like a LAN experience.
Yeah. Before kind of our state tournament got really put in place, I did So I'm also a member of the ITech board, so the State Education Technology Board. We actually hosted a little esports tournament at our fall conference one day just to have that in-person experience, and everybody who was there said it was awesome experience. Is something they didn't get to have otherwise. I had to go and make sure everything was set up on the back end. That was a fun time. Because I'm running an education conference. I'm like, hey, let's do an esports tournament while we're here too. Because what? I got plenty of hours in a day, right?
Yeah, it'll be
Um,
easy.
yeah, it was for the most part. Most computers worked. Um, so from your experience, kind of your viewpoints, what are some of the things that we can really improve in esports kind of moving forward?
Oh, how much time we got here?
Uh, as much
I,
as we want.
I think yeah, no, it's a good question. I think we're at the point now where and I'm just joking, it's like, you can make fun of your own kid, but when other people make fun of your kid, it's not cool. That's how I feel about esports. But so I think there's like we're shifting to an era where we really need to start putting together I'll say rules and ambitions towards where we want the sport to be. I think we've gotten to we went through the attract as many people as possible phase, and it didn't ultimately lead to the best experience for the people building the leagues and running the teams. And I think in my head, the things that we need to do to move forward are building it as a better sport so that coaching and staff members are able to organize better so that that can lead to better live events. It can lead to more attracting parents and fandom. And ultimately, it can lead to an experience that where we're shaping what the students and what the players are experiencing instead of just signing everyone up for anything and everything that they say they're interested in and trying to make it work. I want to see that kind of stay in 2025 and kind of move forward to shaping the experience that we want to deliver. And I can expand
I
on any of that if you want, or
Oh
if
yeah,
it
I
makes
think we
sense.
can because like one thing I'm worrying is that each state's kind of doing things a little bit differently at the high school level, and it's interesting to ask why are you doing it that way. In Iowa, we have 3 seasons, which I would say from the coaching end doesn't give me a lot of time to prepare for the next season or any time off. Like my off season is literally a day sometimes, so it's kind of that constant season to season. That does burn out the coaches a little bit, or at least takes up a lot of time. But it is interesting some of the states when they're playing different titles, like uh, one state what was Smash, they'll have like as a team or individuals at the same time, and so there's a lot of different ways everybody's doing everything. Um, so it is interesting how we have each state kind of doing things different, but not sure which way is the best way for the kids and the programs overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we really got to figure that out. I think it extends to the college level as well, and it all. I always when I have these conversations, I like to start with and saying I understand that almost a lot of the problems that we need to solve, I understand where they came from, and it was a place of caring, and it was a place of trying to build something that was um, inclusive to all and giving everyone an opportunity all the time. And we did it on the backs of people who were putting in way too much time into not getting enough compensation or not enough reward out of it, and then burning out and leaving it to someone else to do it. And it just doesn't work.
Yep.
The programs that I've historically talked to their coach and tried to learn more about are the ones that started with the coach putting his mental health and his mindset first and building a program that he was physically capable of doing. And if that was for the first year, literally one Valorant team, then that's all they did. And it's terrible to say no to people. And you want to try to help everyone you can, but ultimately you can't help anyone if it's the program's not there in a year. So
Yep.
I think building it that way first is super important. And that just because a state offers every title, just because you have kids who want to play every title, doesn't mean you should. Just because it offers maybe multiple seasons a year, doesn't mean you need to.
Yeah.
These are the conversations we have to start having and normalizing around, like you said, getting together and making more of a standard season for esports.
Yep. Well, and I think the other thing is the lack of knowledge around esports from parents, school communities, and even community at large. There's still a lot of parents who don't understand what esports is, and how it can lead to other opportunities, whether it's college scholarships, but also jobs and careers that are out there that are connected to esports, but also some of the positive skills that come out of it. Because it's still amazing. I've always tried to do a lot with outreach and building the knowledge of parents and sharing out. But as soon as a kid gets a scholarship offer, they're very shocked. They didn't think I was serious.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of where my thinking comes from too is no one understands esports. My parents didn't until you see it like live and until you see the interaction. And right now that happens at state, which is great and an improvement. I am very excited for a future in which we have it similar to traditional sports where we can have parents watching weekly matches regularly, being invited out the same as a basketball or football game. So many schools now have invested in equipment across the country, and yet it's more of a computer lab and not a come and watch us play.
Yep.
And that's when esports takes off. That's when the parents really get it. That's when the school even can get better buy-in is when you're seeing it, even if the other team's not there. I give this example. People are talking about travel and different advantages or whatever. I'm like, step back. It doesn't need to be exactly like sports. I'm talking about have your team play, have a TV hooked up with a spectator, and have the parents come out and watch. That alone is a huge improvement over what we've been doing. Then you invite the friends, and then eventually maybe yeah, we start traveling for match days during the week or whatever. But that can still be 5 years from now, and there's still steps in between. We don't have to just go from completely online to completely traveling in person, whatever. Like let's start working towards that.
Yep. No, I think what hurts. So the first season I was the coach was the COVID year. So 2020, 2021. And, we were live streaming everything because we had to, because parents weren't allowed in the building. Even
Mhm.
after that, so our second year, when all the restrictions were kind of lifted for our school, we did get a few parents to show up, but it was only sometimes those bigger matches. And it actually was a state championship. We had some parents show up because we were in the media center. So all of our systems were against one wall, and so there actually was space for parents to come in. But I've also seen a lot of schools are doing it in these small rooms, small spaces. But then there are some high schools I've seen who actually gone out and build like these full competitive labs because they had so much support in district for that. But that's not common from a lot of coaches I talk with.
Yeah, and, there's I know every situation's different and whatnot, but like there's also plenty of space that goes completely unused, especially after school,
Yep.
where you could set up 5 computers or 3 computers or a couple switches. You could hook up a projector. You don't need a permanent space to at least have a couple or even one day a year. That's parents' night where you set it up to have people come out. Like there is a million steps in between online and complete in-person travel.
Yep.
And anything you can do to inch closer to that is where again to this change in this next decade of what I want esports to look like. Anything we can do to push towards that is a good thing in my book.
Um, I know one thing that I like about NAECAD is you guys come out with that coaching program, which I will do at some point. I've been busy the last couple
Shame on
months.
you.
Yeah, it's on the to-do list. It's right here on the to-do list.
Well, it's
Um,
down right now, so you have a pass. It comes
all
back
right.
in a couple weeks.
But that's another thing too, is that a lot of the coaches I've seen with esports, they are coach the video games were something they were interested in, so they became the coach because somebody said, hey, we want to have an esports program, will you coach it? So there's still a lot of learning that they're having to do to be a good coach, and especially in terms of esports, where a lot of the coaches I've talked with, like they've been an EA in the building, the custodian, bus driver, and then some teachers. So it is kind of one thing too, where their background's not in esports for the most part, but it is something they've been brought into. So them learning how to be a better coach is going to be something that'll help everything out because, like you said, with regular sports, you typically had people who played the sport, so they were competitive in it, and now they're coaching it. So we don't see that as much. I'm saying at the high school level, just because of how many programs there are and how it's still growing as of right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the ironic thing is when I'm training coaches, the ones who need more help are the ones who said they were a gamer and signed up because they're a gamer, than the ones who maybe came from a different sport or played sports in high school and they're asking different questions and they have a different fundamental understanding of what's expected and how to set up a team. And I think that's what's really interesting. And so, yeah, we developed at NAECAD for quite a while. We finally launched our first certification. We took our time with it to make sure we were really confident in what it offers. And it'll have a couple tiers. There's a level one, two, three. Level one's finished and ready right now. And that's really what we tackled was a combination of traditional athletics and what you learn in that transfers to esports, but then also rewording that into an esports environment and how you can use some of that to apply to esports. But then also we filled in the gaps of what's missing from traditional coaching and traditional sports coaching to esports. So it's a really good course too because we're really intentional about making sure it does not matter your gaming background to be able to do this well. And especially at the K-12 level, I could care less if you knew the esports titles. If you did everything that we teach in the certification, you'll quickly learn that your knowledge of the game is almost the last thing on our bucket list of things I want you to be doing. When it comes to structure, when it comes to guidance, mentorship, leadership, being the voice in the room that's putting everything together, solving problems and making sure they're working as a team. I don't mention what game we're playing at all, and that's what's cool about the level one as well is it doesn't matter like what games you do. So we use game examples here and there, because we have to, but we keep it
Yep.
relatively vague on which game because it applies to all of them. It's more about team dynamics, structure, and how you actually approach coaching.
Yeah, I mean, that's stuff I've been trying to focus on as a high school coach myself, just because I know I don't know the games as well as they do. It's kind of nice. I've had former players come in after they graduated, because luckily being in the town of a major university, some of our kids don't go very far, so they will come back. And so I have one former player coming in right now who has all the game knowledge. He was like my captain for a couple of titles, but so he's helping them with the game stuff, whereas I'm controlling everything else. I'm focusing on how your team dynamics. I'm focusing on when do we rotate players, just how are we working as a team, as opposed to I know I'm not the expert in the room in terms of the game itself. Especially with Overwatch, I am just for some reason that game just does not stick in my head with characters. They keep adding too many.
Yeah,
So
the games with too many people and too many abilities and track and all that. Yeah, listen, I mean, it's one of those things too where when you really go into a season, you have two worries. One, you have a really high level team and you're like, how do I coach these people?
yep,
And what you realize is over the course of an 8 week season, you maybe need eight things that they need to work on that season because there are that if you and again you bring in someone, you pay someone, all you need to do is have someone analyze their gameplay once a week, pick out one thing they need to work on. And then the rest of it is just managing the team dynamics of the team and making sure that they are getting along and team building and communicating and following the proper structure. Like it's not actually that much, like you can manage it. And then the lower level teams are the people that need to get together. There's so much they need to do. Again, you could Google it pretty easily, find what they need to work on, find some drills, find some packs, whatever. And it's not that many things you need to stack in order to fill an 8 week season and to get them to improve.
yep,
Um, and then, when we look at the different categories of how you improve in esports, a lot of it, one of the things I've always said is like, um, you could put me into a room with the team and just listening to their communication would tell me all I need to know about how well that team is organized, how well that team is working together. And I don't even need to see their gameplay to know where we could improve or spend a couple weeks just trying to get them to actually communicate together. Huge one where you don't need to know the game. I don't need to know the specific callouts to know when our communication is failing. And then team building, another one that, even at the professional level, we talk to people and they're saying the same thing that like, yes, at the professional level, analysts are good and understanding where your team needs to work is good. But most of the time, those teams explode because of interpersonal relationships and not because their strategy wasn't good or whatever. So it's the same thing at all levels.
yep. Um, so we talked about some of the challenges. What are some of those biggest wins that you've seen have happened because of esports? Like, why should we have it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's been relatively consistent since when I got into it, and that it is such an amazing opportunity to offer something that didn't reach a lot of students or a lot of kids before. I think there wasn't before esports, there wasn't a competitive environment that didn't involve to some level genetics or a real interest or a certain crowd. And there was a lot of people that just kind of pushed or found different things or never found anything at school. And I think esports really filled this gap where you had this competitive environment that anyone could play or pick up a controller and try, and gave them an ability to compete on an equal playing field. And I think that that's really, really cool. I think competition is a really good thing. And uh, traditionally with athletics, the pros that we see from the competitive environment, or more so managing the competitive environment, have always translated well to jobs and to just hard work, determination, like all these things, and being able to apply that to something like video games, I think is amazing to be able to teach those same lessons through a medium that reaches new people and doesn't have any sort of inherent barrier other than getting on the game or being able to maybe afford a computer or whatever. But now, schools are getting better at providing those. So
Yep.
yeah, I think that's mainly it.
Yeah. I mean, I hear this from the students themselves when they say it's something they wouldn't have gotten to experience otherwise. And even had a couple of my former players on who are competing at the college level now said that it changed their lives. So it's something that really made impact in their lives, where they're not sure where they'd be heading without esports because, it's given them a community, it's given them a chance to learn. And yeah, it's been a big thing. And so I think that's a constant thing I'm hearing about why we should have esports, the opportunities it gives kids who don't normally get that. Um, I mean, I do
Yeah,
have some kids in my program who are also playing sports, but it is predominantly kids who aren't part of some sports teams.
yeah, I think it's actually cool, or even better when there's like crossover and buy-in between the communities. I encourage that a lot. Like high school, for example, and talking to high school coaches, one of the pillars we talk about is health and wellness, and still wanting them to be, healthy because it's important for anyone. And the idea of working them in with another sport, whatever sports in season, trying to get them to work in at the gym or do something where it's no lift to the esports coach
Yep.
is awesome, because then you're also connecting those kids and building opportunities for them to understand how to be, a well-rounded athlete, not just a gamer. And I think that's super important. There's this idea of like doing, it sounds silly, but just do hard things. Like doing hard things is good for you. And that's also why I like esports, is like, that's what sports have always served as, like a reason and a way to push you to do something hard and to learn that you can do it. And if you're just gaming by yourself or gaming as an escape, that's a completely different experience than gaming on a team and competing for
Yep.
a state championship. It's night and day. One of them it needs to be monitored and cut back on and made sure it's healthy. The other one is a very active way to develop yourself and engage in doing hard things. And I think that's awesome.
Yep. Kind of with the questions. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that you really want to share or talk about?
Whew. Um, I don't know. Maybe curious from your end. You asked me, but what do you think's from the high school side of and what you've seen? What do you think's the biggest areas for improvement or things we have to be paying attention to over the next 5 years?
Well, I would like to see a little bit more consistent support for programs. I think that's the biggest problem is that so many schools, you have some coaches who are having to fight for every dollar to get the programs in place, where some schools putting a lot towards it. And I know that's with every activity, but the little more uniformity or a little bit more belief in the programs across schools would be nice. Um, I think it is the communication side too. I think that's the other thing, so that parents are aware of what's out there. Um, Especially with college programs. That's kind of a thing where I've always tried to, I'll have a spreadsheet for my students saying, hey, here are the college programs in our area. These are the titles they offer, scholarships they offer, stuff like that. Um, I think it's just knowledge building too, because the growth we've seen in our state league over the last 6 years has been amazing. But with that, that means that there's still a lot left to do. It is interesting when I'm talking with other states like Delaware, the way they have set up where it's been very consistent and everything kind of runs through their state Department of Ed. That's a little interesting. Whereas, I couldn't see that happening in Iowa, just because of the size of our program versus the size of their program. So I think one thing I would like to see a little bit more access to funds for schools, but biggest thing is going to be communication, and then support for coaches too. So like learning how to coach is going to be a big thing, just because that is the thing that so many of the coaches I've met, this is the first time they've done anything like that. Whereas I've been in charge of other programs in the past, esports was just one of those things that really fit for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a big reason why I started working at NAECAD. I think when I looked just kind of objectively at what's going on, it was clear that coaching was something that is potentially a big thing holding us back, or at least um, is going to need to evolve in order to get esports to the next level. And or I saw it splitting into two paths, and one I didn't really like, and maybe some people not like this or whatever. But we were kind of at a point where, mainly college, but both, where we were getting really confused between the terms of an esports team and a gaming club, and what was different about them and what it means. And people are still confused about it and what they're building, and coaching was a fundamental part of that branch going into the esports team, the direction I really believe in, and why esports is called esports and not just gaming. Um, and so I think coaching is so important, and I think the investment into developing coaches, schools, I mean, that they kind of understand this, but like, uh, it's an act. Coaching is an active skill you have to work on. You got to do professional development. You got to work on yourself. You've got to be able to put in the time to learn how to be a coach, or else you become a gaming club, or else you become
Yep.
all of the buzzwords that you use to pitch this program, get it started. You are no longer doing, because you're not actually. All of those involve your actions, and an active coach enforcing hard work, dedication, teamwork, communication, whatever the words you used. And without all that, it's a gaming club. Now, there are advantages of gaming clubs sometimes. I'm not going to like say gaming clubs shouldn't be a thing. They're just a very different thing than an esports team.
Yep. No, well, I always like to say professional learning is my day job, but it's also my hobby because it involves a state ed tech organization in that. I do just want to make sure there's always more opportunities for coaches to go and learn about how to coach and about everything else involved with that. I've enjoyed the NAECAD summer conference. I went 2 years ago when it was at the University of Minnesota. Love the fact that I was at the Gophers football stadium. Maybe you didn't like that fact. I mean, I know if you being a Hawkeye, that could have been rough for you. It was a very awesome location. I'm from Minnesota, so that's why I say that. But it is one of those nice things to have those professional learning opportunities. That needs to be more common for coaches. It's just going to be, I think, as I get to talk with more and more states, kind of asking that, how are you guys learning how to coach? Is there any opportunities for you guys outside of that? Because, I think we have to make sure those professional learning opportunities are there for
Yeah.
coaches if we want this to keep improving, which I have seen so many benefits to esports. I hope it just keeps growing and growing and becoming something that just happens at schools, similar to how football just happens at schools or any other sport.
Yeah. No, totally. I think it's the biggest thing we're working on, like I said, with our coaching certification that we launched and trying to establish standards. That was the overarching why or goal of the whole program, was to establish standards in esports coaching here in America.
Yep.
And it's what we're working really, really hard on. We did a full this last fall, we did 6 in-person events completely for free, thanks to some amazing sponsors. We're looking to do that again, just to minimize that barrier as much as possible. Like, if you can't get yourself to a free class, I don't know how much more I could do for you,
Yep.
like, we're doing what we can. You can take it online, and we're really hoping to work with states and work with groups to really try to adopt these standards into their coaching, so that I believe we need to get to a point where, just like in every other sport, if you want to coach esports, you got to get certified to make sure we at least know you know how to
Yep.
coach esports. I think that's a big piece, and that's not going to happen overnight. But 5 years, I think it's a very realistic expectation to have out of coaches, and yeah, I think it's really important.
Yep. Um, yes, we can go to my last questions. So, what game are you currently playing, and what's your favorite game of all time?
Yeah, I saw that. I was trying to think of my favorite game of all time. It's a really tough one.
Yeah.
It's probably going to come down to Call of Duty Black Ops 1. which was not an amazing competitive Call of Duty title, but it's the one I have the most nostalgic memories of playing with friends and having a good time on. So I think that's probably my favorite of all time. Um, what I'm playing right now, honestly, I get in trouble for this. I don't play much anymore. Like I
Mm,
think the more I work on it, the less I uh like when I'm done with work, I almost want to not be on it. So
yep.
I mostly like watch. So I'll watch a lot of I still keep up with some Call of Duty, some Valorant, some Rocket League, are the main ones that I'll watch. I'll play occasionally. Like Rocket League's a fun one that you can just pick up and play every once in a while versus like League. Like I gotta do 10 hours of research before I can and figure out how
Yeah.
to who I'm gonna be able to pick without getting flamed or whatever. Uh so yeah, probably a combination of those.
Yeah, I definitely get that just because like I know I need to play more Overwatch with all the new stuff they added, but I'm like, yeah, home I don't want to. Spend all
Yeah.
time watching my kids play Overwatch. Get home and I don't want to do that. So yeah.
And I think watching is equally as important, especially
Yep.
from like a coaching perspective. Playing is good to you need to play enough to the point of understanding the mechanics of the game. After that, unless if you're actually trying to be a better player, just
Hmm.
watching and reading meta notes or like patch notes and meta changes and stuff is going to be what it takes to really just make sure you're on top of it. Um, Ultimately, how well I can click buttons at this point in my life is not as important as knowing how to effectively approach the game. And I think that's more important anyway.
Yep. No, I've learned to watch pro gameplay and competitive gameplay, especially if there's commentary, so I understand more what they're doing. I remember before I started coaching Rocket League for the first time, I did a lot of that, and then I tried playing it, and I'm like, oof, I can't get airborne that much. And I only had 3 kids the first year, and if they all attended school that day, that was great. That was my win. If they attended school, so they could actually play. It was interesting though once they coached Smash for the first time. Even though I've been playing Smash since Smash came out, they were using terms I didn't know because I've been playing it so, I played just for fun.
Yeah.
So as soon as they started using terms I didn't know, I'm like, okay, now I have to go watch pros play Smash so I understand what they mean by Nair. Like, all right, cool. Are you guys talking about removing hair from something or something? It's just so it is kind of interesting. Or even if you think you know the game, watching pros and others play the game with that commentary, with the explanation what's going on, you'll learn a lot more than you thought you could.
Yeah, the games that are like casual, like you just mentioned, like Super Smash Brothers or even
Yep.
Rocket League, Mario Kart, like it is completely different when you're talking about playing in your living room and going into a competitive Discord and queuing up for scrims and just hearing how they talk and approach the game. It's totally different.
Yep.
And that's another piece of going back to like how important events are too. Like again, if you're going to coach a game, like just trying to go to a live event or go even try to sign yourself up for an online tournament, like just doing some sort of that process is going to be a huge learning opportunity. Yeah, to learn terminology, to learn how people talk and organize, and like it is a different language sometimes, and knowing that is more important than um, yeah, you just playing casually in your living room for a couple hours and seeing how you do.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you again for being on. Hopefully I keep gaining more experiences from other coaches so we can see maybe what else they want esports to improve as. I think that's going to be a big question I start asking them. Like, where do you want to see improved for them? Um, but yeah, so thank you for being on another episode of Esports Classroom Podcast, and everybody listening, pay attention for some more episodes.
Thanks for having me.